All right, well, it's a good episode, and then until next week, we will continue to watch the good, the bad, and the should be made.
I see you're
Yeah.
wearing a Canon t-shirt.
Yeah, I got my Canon t-shirt on.
That's a very dazzling image. Yes. It almost seems to have like a reflective quality. Maybe
Yeah, I
that's,
know.
yeah.
Now, I wonder why someone can sell this on TeePublic, but then I put up a shirt that just used a font, but it said a podcaster beneath and like another different font, and it got taken down, copyright claimed.
Well, the people that, I mean,
And
it's
I
kind
bought
of
I bought the image I put on there, and I used a font, and I didn't see it. Just says the name of my show, which obviously I guess I own, so I don't understand why they took it down.
well, the
Weird.
fonts, when you install fonts, you'll see that they have some that say not for commercial use. You have to
Not
buy a
really.
license. Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was.
Uh, did you hear about the thing that happened with Adobe Photoshop recently?
No.
You know what Pantone is?
Yeah.
Uh, just for anybody who doesn't know, they make like those color charts and they assign numbers to different varieties of colors. And when you're using Photoshop, you have the option of selecting different color systems. And if you select the Pantone, you get to use their range of colors, whatever colors that they've created.
Right.
And they're copyrighted. And so recently, Pantone told the world, including folks that are unlucky enough to be using the subscription version of Photoshop, that from now on they'll have to pay $15 a month
Just for
to
the Pantone.
access the Pantone colors. And people who had used the Pantone colors in the past, when they open those projects now, there are black spaces where those colors went. So that's kind of remarkable.
It is, yeah. You figure they would grandfather some people into that. Like, hey, I made this before you.
Well, when you stop and think about it, you have to wonder if they perhaps they have more information about the state of their business and the state of the industry than we have.
All right, yeah.
They're saying we're going down in flames. We're going to be out of business soon. Why don't we just have like a big cash grab? You know, you can get every Photoshop user to pay you $15 a month for a year or so until your company shuts down. That's a nice little pile of cash for everybody, right?
Yeah, the camera app I use on my phone, it's called Filmic Pro. And then of course it unlocks all the more features in your standard phone. Yeah, you can adjust aperture and all that. You can adjust everything, basically make it like a professional.
Right.
Now they've announced they're going to go to a subscription-based service. I'm like, well, I mean, I've already paid for it, so I mean, I already have a version.
Right.
But I would assume if I lose this phone or get a new phone, there goes that version I paid for. So
and you won't get any updates.
No, so I just won't be using their program anymore.
Well,
very sad when people do that.
I'm still plunking along on my Macintosh from 15 years ago.
Right.
And there's a version of Photoshop installed on that suits me perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So, if I have to go through, if I can keep this computer alive until I die, then I hopefully will never have to subscribe to Photoshop or anything else. What's remarkable is that there are so many options now. You don't have to go with Photoshop. I mean, I would prefer to go with Photoshop because I'm so familiar with it. Yeah. But there are a whole bunch of things that are available now that make it increasingly easy to get along without Photoshop, even if you're doing fairly high-end stuff. So I don't really understand their strategy, but I've learned that they don't do these things, impulsively.
Yeah.
Somebody has figured out that this is going to be good for them, and that's why they're doing it.
That's the only way you can get Photoshop now is through subscription based,
That's right.
You can't just go out and buy a copy of it anymore.
Well, I suppose you might be able to find somebody who has a hacked copy of the old Photoshop, the software. But I also dislike the way the companies are disingenuous about what they're actually doing. Like when Photoshop announced this business of becoming when Adobe announced that Photoshop is going to become a subscription thing, their whole suite of apps were going to be subscription based.
Yeah.
And they said, it's going to be great because it'll all be in the cloud.
Yeah.
Now, they did give you a little cloud space
Storage,
to
right?
store your stuff, but the software isn't in the cloud. Software is on your computer. You get updates from the cloud every once in a while when they update the thing. But what they're really doing is they're making it impossible for you to go any length of time using Photoshop without being connected to the internet.
Yeah.
So the software isn't in the cloud. There are alternatives. As a matter of fact, there's a company called a website called Photopia.
Photopia. Yeah.
Photopia.com, right?
Yeah.
Which
That's what
is
I've been using.
quite good, and it
It's real
basically,
basic. It's real basic. It doesn't have a lot of the stuff that I would like to use in Photoshop, but
well,
it works.
well, I think you can pay them too to get rid of the ads, and maybe you get
Yeah.
extra things. But for the average person, I think that would be more than adequate for their Photoshop needs.
Oh yeah. There's another one called GIMP.
GIMP,
And
yes, I have that
it's
as well.
basically Photoshop copy. I mean, it has everything that Photoshop has.
Yes.
It's a little bit. I did the layout is kind of awkward to use. It's like kind of hard to get used to it, but I mean it still works. I mean, it's free, so
Well, free is that
I'm not gonna
encourages you to
complain.
figure
Yeah.
out how to use it, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, there are other things like that subscription that you get to the suite of Adobe products would also include Premiere, but DaVinci is giving away sort of like the basic version of their editing software for free.
Oh yeah, that's what I use. It's
So,
Resolve.
yeah. So I don't know why anybody would want to use that subscription thing. And
Yeah, I think it's a prestige thing, I guess is how I'll say it. Like
prestige for who though?
for the user,
Please.
because like okay, so like whenever I would watch like a YouTuber, if they're doing their review of the new Photoshop, right? And they say, "Oh, it's great. It's a great little," or they'll make a video that says, there's a program called GIMP that you can use that's just as good as Photoshop. And they build it up and they tell you it's the greatest thing ever. You don't need Photoshop. But then at the end they say, "But I continue to use Photoshop
Right.
because I'm a famous YouTuber. I can't be caught using this free software." So I think that's what it is. I think that's the people that are
Well,
still
possibly
paying
so,
for it.
yeah. If people are paying for it, then they
Yeah.
probably are more interested in videos about Photoshop than they would be about GIMP.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I've been using Photoshop now since the early 90s.
Yeah.
So I really feel you can turn off your mind, and it's almost like an instinctive thing when you're doing stuff. And that isn't quite true yet with GIMP. You still have to stop and look for things and try to
Yeah.
figure out how things work. So that's probably the one remaining advantage of Photoshop is that we have years of experience with it. That's why I was so sad to see Final Cut Pro go. You spend a decade of your life building up all workarounds and things, figuring out special ways to do things using the software, and then they basically eliminate that.
Yeah.
They replace the software with something else where all your experience is worthless. Right? So
I think other people just talk about it too, just saying like, if I want to get a job as an editor, I've got to use what these people are using because they're going to give me, Premiere files. I can't
Right.
use Resolve because it's not going to open up. So I think that's another reason. Just in standards of people still using Premiere and After Effects and all that.
Well, for folks that are doing things like video editing, if they're editing films or TV commercials, presumably the experience is what's important. The software itself, I'm sure they can,
Yeah.
that's not the big problem. But being comfortable with the software, that's the real challenge, right? Being comfortable enough to be able to be creative with it.
Right.
That's always the sort of the final threshold that you have to cross when you're using these things. It's not enough to say. It's like people say they play chess, and they mean they know how to move the pieces around on the board, but they're not up to the point yet where they can strategize and actually, play chess. Right.
Yeah.
They're not comfortable enough with it to be able to be at ease with it and be creative with it. And that was the great advantage of Final Cut Pro and Photoshop. I'm sure there are things that I came up with in my time in using Final Cut Pro that are things that pretty much my own special technique. And it wouldn't
Right.
be of any use to anybody else because I have certain, there are certain circumstances or certain things that I'm dealing with that I need to develop a workaround or a special technique for. And that wouldn't be true for other people. Other people wouldn't have any use for my techniques. But everybody is going to have their own set of little bag of tricks. And if they keep replacing these things, then that makes our experience worthless. It means that everybody's stuff. Well, that was, of course, the other great sin with Final Cut Pro is that they actually made it impossible for you to open your old projects
Yeah.
with the new software. So, which is an outrage, in my opinion.
Yeah, I looked into like the Adobe stuff and I was like, they're not even trying to sell me that it's cheaper.
Right.
To me, it's like cheaper just to buy, just buy Photoshop for $300 or whatever it is, instead of giving you, I think it's like $20 a month. Oh, I mean, eventually I'm going to have bought Photoshop 10 times.
Yes. Right. Well,
And I still don't own it. You can get rid of it anytime you want to.
right.
And then there's, $300 just down the drain.
Well, when they first announced this, there were people. What always bothers me is that the fans or the tech writers will always go to bat for these big companies.
Yeah.
And it should have been obvious to anybody that if you're going to a subscription service and it's going to be forever,
Mm-hmm.
then eventually you're going to be paying a lot more than you would have been paying if you had stuck with,
Physical copy.
purchase a physical copy. And the fact that they update it all the time, that doesn't really mean anything because I'm using a vastly outdated version of Photoshop and it's perfectly fine. There's no stuff that I need from their updates. So I can't really understand why anybody would think that that's a good idea for anybody other than Adobe and its stockholders if they're
Right,
a
yeah.
publicly traded company. I don't know if they are, but for the average consumer, it's a lousy deal for a whole bunch of reasons. This Pantone business is a good example, right? That wouldn't happen if everybody had their software on their computer,
On the computer, yeah.
right? It's only
It's just
possible
like
to do.
it's just like leasing a car. I'm like, why would you lease a car?
Well, I guess if you lease a car the way Steve Jobs did,
Yeah.
where what was his gag? He never got a license.
I think so,
He
yeah.
just went around with the temporary tags until, and until it was necessary to get a license. Then he would just trade in the car for another leased car.
Yeah.
So he never had to get a license. God bless him. I think they changed the law just because of that little trick. of
Probably,
his.
yeah.
But anyway, there's a lot of things about the media business, about big tech and the movie business and TV that seems to me to be going in a bad direction. But what can we do about it, right?
Yeah, right. I guess nothing.
Not really, no.
Or,
Sometimes it seems like your day is entirely taken up with updates to your software and updates to your
Right.
operating system,
Yeah.
dealing with problems with the software. Why is this happening? Or getting constant messages from Google and from Amazon and from Facebook about changes in their terms of service.
Service, yeah.
And you always have that moment where you wonder, should I just throw this out or should I bother reading it?
Just get rid of it, yeah.
And that's just become a constant source of stress in people's lives. And I don't see it getting any better. I don't see where it's doing anybody any good because despite all of their constant emails to me about their terms of service, apparently Facebook had several privacy violations,
Yeah.
that they ended up having to pay billions of dollars in fines. So, what good does any of that do? Like I say, I don't like the fact that they just lie, like Adobe saying that you're going to have your software in the cloud, which wasn't true. There are a bunch of others. If I won't bore people with all the instances where I see big tech basically telling us bullshit stories.
Oh, yeah.
But it happens with a disturbing frequency nowadays.
I think right now I think most people are dependent on this stuff. So it's just like, yeah, no matter what Elon Musk says, I'm still going to use Twitter. So
Well, that's it, yeah.
he's
And
kind of got me here. So
there is no alternative. We probably could have seen that coming like 30 years ago when
yeah,
things started heading down this path, when we started to introduce things like the word software or applications into
yeah,
our language. We should have said, yeah, maybe we should have some sort of laws about this. Instead, we just trusted the bright, smiling faces of all these tech people when they told us that everything that they're doing for us.
yeah.
They're not interested in money. They just want you to be able to share photos of your grandchildren with grandma. They want to allow you to post pictures of your cat and, or sell your cupcakes online or whatever, and it all turned out to be bullshit.
No,
Think Different, was a brilliant advertising campaign. But the way that they've changed our brains, the way we're thinking differently now, is not really what they were advertising, right?
no,
It's created this sort of constant level of stress in people's lives because we feel like we're constantly obligated to these social media platforms.
yeah. I turn off my notifications. I don't even get notified. I
Oh
don't know.
yeah.
I don't know I don't know if someone's messaged me until I open the app.
Well, that's probably wise for your mental
Yeah.
health
Oh yeah.
because otherwise they're ceaseless. I mean, it goes on all day. Your phone be ringing.
It gets so bad now that it tells you. So like if I'm following someone, if someone they're following that I'm not following posts them and it tells me about it. I'm like, I don't
Right.
really care. I don't care that someone that that I don't know tags you in a photo. And that's why I just had to turn it off. It's like I can't get these all day, every
Yeah.
day.
No. And the what they would do if you complained about it is they would refer you to all your settings, but they've just recently changed everything. So, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that Elon Musk's spaceship has instructions that are less complicated than this. It's just ridiculously over complex system. And I realize that what it is they don't want regular people to be using the software in that way. They want
Yeah.
that all for people that want to advertise, want to use Facebook for advertising, Instagram for advertising. So they make it ridiculously complex so that the average person says, fuck it, whatever they
But yeah, whatever.
I'll
Yeah.
put up with.
Whatever the default settings are, that's what I'm
Right.
going with.
And the only people that will be bothering with that would be the people that they're actually making money from. So, I suppose in a sense it's a logical business decision, but
Yeah.
it's very frustrating for the
Yeah, I
average
was in
person.
there. I mean, I'm not tech stupid. I'm pretty tech savvy. And I was in there the other day just trying to figure out how to get it to where if I post something on like a group or what do they call them now, community, whether someone could share, and I couldn't find anything. I just like, oh my God, this is horrible.
Well,
Just to look around their settings.
we're in a stage now on Facebook where they've upgraded supposedly
Yeah.
some of the pages, and some of the others are what they're calling the classic experience.
Yeah.
So there are things that you can now do, and you have to do if you maintaining a Facebook page. If it's been upgraded, there's a whole set of different rules and a whole bunch of different settings for that. But if you use a classic version of a page because they haven't gotten around for whatever reason to upgrading, then you have a whole bunch of different rules.
Different things, yeah.
So it's ridiculous, really, and I can understand why people have gone from admiring people like Mark Zuckerberg to despising them, because we see ultimately that they only have one interest, and let's add
Make
another
money,
couple of
yeah.
billion to the billion we already have.
Oh yeah.
And that's true of all of them, really. There's no good guys that I can see in any of this. It's all about money, ultimately.
Yeah.
It makes me feel very stupid because, along with a lot of other people, I used to have good feelings about some of these folks as being kind of heroic figures that were.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
in
You
the
always
world.
imagine. You always imagine that. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, he's gonna do good, but they're not.
All a lot of
They're all.
baloney.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's Thanksgiving week. This should hope it's to come out Thanksgiving. So let's try to talk about something positive. Have you seen anything good lately, or anything new, or?
Oh, geez, I don't know if I've seen. I've been watching the old Avengers because that's something I found on Amazon.
Yeah.
They have I guess they found they went back to the original negatives so they could do new 4K releases. I don't know if any of those are available in the United States yet, but the streaming version that Amazon is running on Amazon Prime is the high quality version. So I went back and I bought season 4 of The Avengers, which gets 1966.
Right.
That was the episode. That was the season first season they shot on film, and also the first season that Diana Rigg played Emma Peel.
So it must look pretty good then if they got the original. What was it,
Yeah.
30? Was it 16 or 35?
No, they shot on 35. Yeah,
35. So it must look really good.
it does look very sharp and very detailed, which doesn't always.
Was it in color at that point, or
Well,
was it
they
still
went
black
to
and white?
color in the 5th season, which I also
Okay.
purchased. I haven't started watching those yet. I just finished the season 4. I was surprised by how many episodes still hold up very well. You know, there's some episodes that are really very charming and smart. It's possible that the prints that they're using might have been edited for American TV, because I noticed there was a famous episode called, geez, I forget what the name of it was. It was the episode where, the Hellfire Club, A Touch of Brimstone was the episode.
Okay.
And it's about a bunch of guys that are trying to recreate the Hellfire Club from British history. The guys that tried to blow up the Parliament, I guess. I forget what the particulars were. Anyway, it was a particularly notorious episode because Diana Rigg is forced to wear this sort of S&M costume. I mean, even more S&M than the costume she normally wears. And the American network, ABC, didn't air that episode for that reason. And which seems kind of strange.
Yeah.
But apparently it did end up in syndication in America. But they, even for Britain, I think they cut out, there's one scene where Peter Wyngarde, who was the British actor who ended up playing the character that Austin Powers is based on.
Yeah.
He plays the villain in this episode, and he has one scene where he's lashing Emma Peel with a whip. And I guess when it aired in the UK, they forced them to take out like 3 of the 4 lashes of the whip.
Yeah.
And that's the version that's showing on Amazon Prime. So I think it's probably edited for either the UK or for American broadcast. Also, there's a couple of lines of dialogue in one episode. Sense of History was the episode. A couple of lines of dialogue that seemed to have been eliminated because they were a little too risque. But I'm going to have to go back and check. It's always hard to tell because there's so many different versions of these things over the years that you don't know if it was edited for television just because they wanted to squeeze in another commercial, or but you would assume that if they went back to the original negatives, that it should all be intact. What version are they going to? You know, is it the American version? Is it the British version? I don't know. One thing I did notice is that when they used to broadcast film shows on television, they always took into account that the TVs would overscan the image.
Right, yeah.
So the edges of the picture would be lost to the viewing audience. But they would film the whole thing, sometimes with the edges of the set or microphones and things like that dipping down into the shot, or the pieces of the edge of the set visible and things like that. And I see a lot more of that in this time that I've watched it. Of course, I'm watching it on a 55-inch TV screen, so that might be the reason too.
Yeah.
You also see a lot of things like flyaway hairs and dandruff on people's clothing and things like that. So it's a pretty sharp, detailed picture. But that's a series that I would recommend to people if they're looking for something that's charming and old-fashioned and fun, and certainly was influential. I think probably a lot of movies and TV shows are still trying to capture the sort of relationship that Mr. Steed and Mrs. Peel had on that series. They only did 2 seasons, interestingly. It was just the 4th season and the 5th season. But memorable. And I probably said more than you really care to hear about it.
Oh, no.
Most people don't really care about the Avengers anymore, but for which is kind of a shame. But
I think it's weird that like in America they would have cut out her costume, but they were fine with her being whipped to death almost.
well, that's what they said. That
Yeah.
the legend is that they wouldn't let the episode air, and they cited the costume. But there's also a lot of other. It's like the Hellfire Club was a pretty rowdy, bawdy, bunch of folks. So
Yeah.
they have a lot of scenes of women being passed around and a lot of drinking and carrying on. So maybe that worked against it as well. Or maybe they would say that it was just a sort of pervasive atmosphere of, unwholesome
Yeah.
stuff. But the funny thing is people claim that for years afterwards, ABC would always run that episode at their events. Like if they had private events with their executives, that would be the episode they put on. It doesn't nowadays, of course, it seems ridiculously mild,
Oh yeah.
but back at that time, anything that was explicitly, I mean, she's actually on a leash with a stud collar and a leather bikini type or one piece thing and high heels and so I could see where some people might say that that's depending on what time of day it was,
Well,
time
yeah.
of night it was running. I guess some people might find that objectionable.
I guess that show probably would have been popular with kids, right? Younger,
Well,
like a younger audience back then.
the funny thing is, after it was canceled from the network, it immediately went into syndication. It was running at like 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think that it's funny how that works. I don't know to fuss about stuff when it's running on the network, and then to show everything when it's running in syndication, when
Syndication. Yeah.
children would be more likely to be viewing it. That seems like a strange thing, but and sometimes maybe they just do this just to get more publicity. Who knows?
Probably. Maybe it's hard to control when it's syndicated.
Yeah, well, I guess syndication, they have the ability to judge their own local audience. Will the local audience accept that? In the case of New York, of course, we accept anything.
Yeah.
But anything on TV, we're perfectly fine,
That's
The
what
only-
made. I mean, I remember like because Star Trek Next Generation, it was like syndicated from their beginning, right? It
Yes, that was
wasn't
always in
originally on
syndication. Right,
and
yes.
that's where it became so popular. I think because it reached more people.
Yeah.
Probably picked up people that weren't even originally Star Trek fans.
Yeah, it had the advantage because if they had run on a network, then it would be showing one time, and if people didn't catch it, then the ratings would be low, and it
Yeah,
would probably be canceled in a
they
season.
canceled. I guess the only thing that sucks about the syndication is maybe catching stuff out of order. If it was a serial show or something.
Well, fortunately with Star Trek, that really never was a big issue.
Yeah, I know it wasn't
until
serious.
recently, at least.
Yeah.
But the back in the days when they did episodic TV that didn't have a continuing story, what they would usually do is start shooting the episodes and then pick from later in the season once those episodes were completed and put those at the front. And the idea being you're probably going to get better as you go along.
Yeah.
So pick the better episodes. And that's what they did with the Avengers as well. They put 2 or 3 of the best episodes right at the top of the season. And then there's a fairly considerable drop in script quality for 2 or 3 episodes. And then it rebounds to a more consistent, level of quality.
Yeah.
But I mean, the story of the Avengers is kind of an interesting thing because it was like a lot of series. First of all, it was the only British program to air up to that point, at least, to air in primetime in the United States. And the network in the United States, ABC, apparently they bought it because they thought it would be cheaper than keeping their Honey West show on the air.
Yeah.
So they canceled Honey West and they brought over, which I think was a good. I mean, I have only seen one episode of. Is that the title, Honey West? I think
I think so. Yeah.
It's like the girl, the woman from Forbidden Planet, Frances. I forget her
Right.
full name. Anyway, that looked like an entertaining show, but it didn't look anywhere near as innovative as the Avengers. The Avengers is a sort of show that evolved over. I think they had been on the air. By the time Diana Rigg joined the cast, they had been on the air for, they had 3 seasons that they had already done with Honor Blackman, who would go on and play Pussy Galore and Goldfinger. all the, it seemed like every actor on the Avengers. Anna Blackman left to play Pussy Galore in a James Bond movie. Diana Rigg left and eventually played, I forget, Teresa Bond. What was the name of Bond's wife?
I think so, yeah.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And Patrick McNee, who played John Steed, he ended up in one of the Roger Moore, I forget if it was A View to a Kill or one of the later Roger Moore movies, as his sort of sidekick. And that's pretty remarkable. And there's a lot of other minor folks that
Yeah.
did Bond films and all. But they had those 3 years where they were doing it as a live on tape show to really work out all the kinks in the concept. So by the time they started working on the Diana Rigg episodes, they really had it down pat, and they survived the television switch to color, which a lot of popular shows were going to color right around that time. Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Wild Wild West, and a lot of I Dream of Jeannie, and probably many others that shifted to color. And that was really important back at that time because the networks and the companies that made the TVs, they really wanted color TV to be a successful thing. So they wanted colorful shows, and they needed to have those popular shows that were in black and white go to color. So they
I
survived
think
that.
that hurt some shows. Like when I watch Andy Griffith,
Mhm.
the colored episodes just don't have the charm as
Well, I agree.
not as good as the black and white episodes.
Well, that's exactly what I would say about the Avengers as well. I think season 4 is the best season. It's the black and white season with Diana Rigg that was shot on film. And the color season has some very entertaining episodes. And they went all out with the color, but it just doesn't have the same charm, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And maybe due to the fact that color just made it less of a fantasy. It made it a little too real.
Yeah.
So they did one more season with Diana Rigg, then she left for good, and they got another actress, and then the series was canceled, I think, before it even finished its run that season on the network. And they made several efforts over the years to try to bring it back. They did a terrible movie, and they did a revival series, The New Avengers, which didn't fly very well. But it's fun to go back and see that one season when everything was clicking is still entertaining. They still had something there, And it's inspirational to me because I think, gee, if only somebody could do something like that now,
Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be possible because maybe sometimes with these sort of TV shows, it's just something that was in the wind at the time, It just felt right to be doing a show like that.
Yeah, you can't do simple stuff though anymore. Like even like your just regular police dramas now are just over the top. It's all they want to make a big action, and then with all the CSI shows, they got to make the tech like amazing, and it's just like it's way too over the top. There's no way you could just do a basic cop drama now.
Right. Well, I guess you're right. These series have been on the air now for so long. I mean, when you stop and think about it, they've been doing stuff like this since the 50s.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just a desperate attempt to find something new, some way to rejuvenate the stuff to keep people watching. Frankly, I'm surprised anybody's still watching broadcast TV. I can't imagine what's on there that would be of any interest anyway. But also now we have maybe one reason why a show like The Avengers wouldn't work now is because we have this sort of faux sophistication that all the streaming series seem to have. They seem to have a sort of arty approach to things.
Yeah.
That people seem to fall for. They seem to think they're watching really good stuff. And yet all of those shows, for some reason or another, when they start, they have tremendous reaction, and then by the time they're in their last season, everybody is saying how badly they've fallen.
Yeah.
I think Westworld is a good example, another series that started very promisingly. Everybody's saying it's the best thing that's ever been on television. And now it's like, please take it off.
Yeah.
So my feeling is probably what it is that with these streaming series, since they don't have separate episodes, since it's an ongoing thing, people feel the potential of the thing.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're excited about. And when the potential is never realized, the audience gets angry and hates the thing as a result.
Yeah.
Like Lost is a good example.
Oh yeah, Law. I remember watching that first season going, man, this is great. Good original show. Then they got to season 2. I was like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, do they?
Right.
They
Well,
have no idea where this is going. They're just
one-
making it up as they go along.
Yeah, and that becomes very irritating to the audience
Yeah.
when they, I mean, Twin Peaks, you could say they didn't know where they were going either, but it didn't matter because it was pretty obvious from pretty early on that the thing wasn't going to go in a sort of predictable fashion. And you know,
Yeah.
I know the network tried to push that who killed Laura Palmer thing, like that was, who killed JR.
Yeah.
But really, if you're watching the show, it was pretty obvious that it was not going to be like a traditional mystery thing, right? So
Right.
it wasn't really disappointing. But the mystery box idea, I guess that's what he calls it, J.J. Abrams, the idea of presenting something that externally looks like it might have something very interesting or surprising inside, a mystery box that you always keep closed and you never let people peek inside. That works for some shows. I guess it worked for Lost. It was on the air for years. The problem is that at some point, if you don't open the box, people are going to be angry.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you do open the box and there's nothing inside, then people are going to be angry.
Oh, there's no, yeah.
So there's no way to win, really. But of course, they were on the air for years and they made a shitload of money. So
Yeah.
I
I
just
guess
wonder.
people just kept watching though. I guess it was just I've got to figure out what happens. I mean, I dropped out. I was like, I'm done. But
Well,
I
this
guess
is a
people
is a-
just like, I guess they stuck around it's going to happen next week. They're going to show
Right.
us next
The
week. Like, then we go
diehards.
back and then they come back next week. Okay, I see what they're doing now. Next week is there really going to be a good,
So it really is just like the soap operas, right?
yeah.
But
Just like The Walking Dead. I love that show. I watched it and then it was just like eventually it got to the point where it was the same thing every season.
Yeah.
It was just the same storyline. They go to this new town and there's like the zombies aren't even really a threat anymore. That's a lot of people that are alive and they're about humanity. That's what we're battling against now.
right.
There's always this big villain, and that was it. That was the next season. We go to the next town. Oh, look, there's another villain. And
Right.
it was the same thing just over and over again.
Well,
Look how you could have ended it. They could have ended it after like season 4. It would have been the perfect show.
but what the audience, and I think we spoke about this recently about how the audience seems to have this perception that there's something there that the
Yeah.
filmmakers are discovering or uncovering for them, but there's nothing there.
No.
It's all being made. It's a product, and it's being made as they go along, right? It in response to demand. If the demand decreases, then the product
They changed
stops
it.
being
Yeah.
made, right? Or they try to change it, right? And if that doesn't work, then they
Hey,
stop
everybody
making it.
hates that character now. Let's go now. We're writing next week's episode now. Let's change. Let's kill that character off now. Or
Right. And
hey, we
that's
shouldn't have killed that character off. Let's bring that person back.
right. And the with network series, I guess because they don't have the sort of flexibility that a soap opera that appears every day has, they might be making changes that won't have the desired effect, and that's when
No.
cancellation becomes.
Yeah.
But nowadays, actually, you could say that with some of these shows and some of these franchises, maybe in a sense, they're never going to be really canceled. Because how long will it be, do you suppose, before somebody says, oh, they're doing a new version of Lost,
Yeah.
or they're doing a feature film version of Lost. And if the feature film version of Lost is popular, then they'll have a sequel to it.
Another show.
And then we'll all be off and running, right? And of course, they'll make all sorts of promises about how this time it'll be perfectly clear to everybody
Yeah.
what's happening, and there'll be a solution to the mystery, and blah, blah, blah.
No, there won't be.
And there won't be because there can't be. There is no solution, right?
Yeah.
The whole idea, the reason why those shows are so intriguing to people is because they give you a premise that you say, what could possibly be the answer to that mystery, right? And the reason why it's so intriguing is because there is no answer to the mystery.
Yeah.
Right? It's an insolvable, impossible thing that they're describing. So it's bound to be frustrating if you're looking for a rational solution or rational answer. The Lost series seemed to me bore a striking resemblance to the TV movie Haunts of the Very Rich, the name of it. It was something with Lloyd Bridges and Ed Asner and a bunch of other TV actors at the time. And the idea was a plane is diverted, it lands on an island, and there's nobody there, and they can't figure out how they came to be there or why the plane landed there. And things start to become sort of decrepit and decayed. Their surrounding is sort of degenerating as they're staying there. And then I guess at the end, the idea was that they were all in hell. It's like a Twilight Zone. And it was a very good TV movie, and it was, even though the ending is kind of a cliche, I appreciated the fact that it had an ending.
Yeah.
And I think the people that did Lost must have saw that. Maybe they saw it on YouTube, where it seems to live nowadays, since they haven't put any of those old TV movies out on disc, as far as I know. So they saw that and they say, that's something we could do every week.
Right.
And just never let the cat out of the bag. Always keep people wondering where the hell these people are. What are they doing there?
It also reminded me of that show, The Prisoner.
Oh, The Prisoner, sure.
It had that weird, what's going on?
Right.
This guy's being attacked by beach balls and
Yeah. Well, that's another series that inspired a lot of anger and frustration when it ended.
Yeah.
Because and they didn't really, it wasn't like a full season. It was, I think, like 12 episodes or
Something
15
like that,
episodes, something like that. And Patrick McGoohan, who had been a big star on television for doing Secret Agent Man. Secret Agent, I guess, was the name of the show. The song was Secret Agent Man. And in Britain, it was Danger Man. That was on for many years. And when they got to the point where they were going to go to color, just like the Avengers did, they started to turn it into like a James Bond type thing. And Patrick McGoohan, who was already sick of doing the show altogether, he didn't want that. So he went to Sir Lou Grade, who was the producer. And I'm sure you've heard of Lou Grade Productions. He did a lot of stuff over the years. And he made him a deal. If he let him out of his contract for a Secret Agent or Danger Man, he would do this other series that he had in mind, The Prisoner. Prisoner was actually based to a certain extent on an episode of Secret Agent. The rough outlines of the premise were the same. But who is number one, right, is the bigger question. Who is number one? What country is running this prison resort for ex-agents? Those were the questions everybody wanted to know. And at the end of the series, they never got an answer. Or they never got an answer that that was satisfying.
The audience liked,
Right. So I don't know to what extent that damaged. It was a reasonably successful show in its network airing, and it's been
got a remake too. A&E, I think, remade it in 2000.
They completely,
I didn't watch it.
completely misunderstood what made the original thing worthwhile. But there was a lot of hostility towards Patrick McGoohan because he was like the chief creative force on the show. And there seemed to be a lot of anger towards him after the last episode.
He
was afraid to he stayed at home for a while until it blowed over. But after that, he never really started another show. Well, he did actually. He did a doctor show.
Yeah.
But his career seemed to go a little bit into decline for a guy that at one time was considered for the Bond role, which he turned down because he found it morally objectionable. And he was also one of the highest paid actors in the UK at one point. So to end up after The Prisoner not really having much else to do, they did do some terrific episodes of Columbo.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one thing. Apparently him and Peter Falk hit it off. He also did one of the worst episodes of Columbo. But when he was on screen, at least, he was good. When he was directing, And he did that one episode. I don't know to what extent you pay attention to the minute critiques of Columbo episodes, but there was an episode that was played out like a traditional mystery. I forget the name of it, but it's most people would say that's probably the worst episode of the original
Right.
series. There were a lot of
Because it didn't have that for it didn't have the same formula as like
yes,
all the other episodes.
that was one problem with it, but the other problem was Patrick McGowan. If you're familiar with The Prisoner, you probably would agree with this. He had a very eccentric style of acting,
Yeah.
and Peter Falk, I think you could say the same thing about. So when you put the two of them together, oh boy.
Yeah.
And he seemed to want to draw out as much of the eccentricity from Peter Falk's performance as he possibly could. And it almost becomes like a caricature of Columbo, which was a problem Peter Falk had
Yeah.
in some episodes, even of the original series. As the series went on, he started to play the character a little too, weirdly. And it made people wonder. We originally thought that maybe this was just a fellow that was kind of absent-minded,
Right.
but it began to make him into, just like a weirdo. And so I forget the name of that episode, like I've forgotten a lot of things,
Yeah.
but it's easy to find. Just Google worst episode of the original Columbo, and you probably, it involves boats. I remember that.
Oh, okay.
But one of the guys that from the Avengers who ended up on Columbo was Patrick McNee. He did a boat episode with Robert Vaughn, who was the guy that played the man from Uncle.
Yeah. Yeah. It all comes together.
Yes, that was actually a pretty good episode. I don't know if you've ever seen the Robert Vaughn episode.
I think I have. It's been a while since I've seen any of the episodes, but I remember watching it all the time.
That was a solid one. Usually when Columbo travels, that didn't produce the best episodes.
Yeah.
Another Avengers reference, stand by. Honor Blackman, who played Steed's partner in the original series, the one that never ran in the United States, the video one. She was in an episode with Richard Basehart, who was the guy who played the captain of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. And they were two British actors who kill somebody. I forget what the particulars were, but that was an episode where Columbo is traveling and he happens to be in England, and so the Scotland Yard sort of calls him in on this case. Seems rather implausible. It wasn't one of their better episodes, and it was another episode where everybody's overacting.
Right.
One of the great things about Columbo is that even fairly late in its run, they still had, really good episodes every once in a while. Like the Ruth Gordon episode comes pretty late in the run of the series, the original series. And you would think that if there was anybody who was going to overact, it would be, Ruth Gordon in the presence of Peter Falk. They'd just be doing the scenery. But actually their performances are very restrained. She seemed to actually bring him down a little bit, make him a little more restrained. And that's one of their best episodes, I think.
Right.
But what were we talking about that got me onto this?
I don't know. I don't know how we got from
Oh, I was talking about the Avengers, and you
Avengers
asked
to
me
Columbo.
what I've been watching, which is probably a mistake on your part. I haven't been watching any movies. Is there anything around that? Well, I did watch Murder of the Wax Museum, which I got the Blu-ray of,
Yeah, you were talking about that. You got the
and I think that's probably pretty much it. What about yourself? What have you?
I watched that movie Smile. It wasn't
that's
any
right,
good.
yes.
It was horrible.
You didn't care for
Yeah.
it? Oh,
No,
wow.
it was it's pretty bad. I watched Barbarian. It was pretty good. It had a nice twist and ending to it, and actually not even ending. It had a twist. I guess
In the middle, yes.
Yeah, right in the middle. It just takes this big twist where you're like, oh my god, I didn't see that coming. But it was pretty good.
Yeah, the Red Letter Media guys seem to like
Yeah,
it pretty well.
I haven't watched their review of it yet, but I think that's the only two things I've watched other than rewatching Planes, Trains, and Automobiles for this show. But
Well, sometimes when you give yourself a break from watching movies, it makes you appreciate when you go back to them and you watch a
Oh,
good
yeah.
one, you can appreciate them all the more. Yeah. I saw this story recently. There's a little target or off topic. Chris Hemsworth, is that his name?
Yeah, the guy plays Thor.
Plays Thor. He was on some sort of National Geographic show recently where they tested him to see what his chances of getting Alzheimer's would be. And turns out that he shows all the signs.
Oh yeah, yeah, I saw that. He's talking about taking a break from acting just to.
See, I think that that's a very bad idea. I think that if there's some chance of curing the disease, Alzheimer's disease is not something that can be cured.
Right.
And to know maybe 20 years or more before that you're going to get that disease, or to, even if you don't have the suspicion that you will, doesn't seem to me to be a helpful thing. What could possibly, first of all, a man with his level of success and with his fortune, and I assume after doing, how many Thor movies has he done now?
Several. Yeah.
He's been in the Avengers movies and he's been in the Thor movies, and I'm sure he's making a nice little bit of money. What is the advantage of having that information? Just means now for the next 20 years or 30 years of his life, he's going to constantly be wondering every time he forgets something if he's
is this it?
Right, and everybody around him will be treating him like he's a simpleton.
Oh yeah.
You know what? You know, do you need me to change your diapers for you?
Yeah.
Why would anybody want to have that information? I can't imagine.
Right.
You know.
I mean, hell, I had to go get checked for glaucoma, and I was like, do I really want to know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's
Should
kind
I
of a
just cancel
similar
this
thing.
appointment? I don't want to worry about that for the rest of my life. I got to put
Right.
drops in my eyes every night, or I'm going to go blind.
Well, the one advantage, though, to that is that they might actually have some sort of treatment to at least delay it or to prevent it. But with Alzheimer's, as far as I know, there's no treatment for that, really. I mean, maybe they can put you on some medication that will delay it. I don't know if they've even reached that stage of development of a medical response to that problem. So I would say live your life as well as you can. Worry about those things when they happen. If he was a poor person, then you'd say, well, he has to start making plans for when he's not going to be able to take care of himself. But he's somebody who never has to worry about that. He's always going to have plenty of people that come and take care of him with all the money he has, and he has a family, right? So why worry about that now, you know? So, but maybe I don't
makes
know.
enough money, he probably could pay for a cure.
Possibly. I'm sure rich people frequently get better treatment. I would think almost certain of that than the average person. So if there's any hope for somebody who has showing the signs of Alzheimer's, you know, he probably, I mean, Billy Connolly, I think he's suffering from Alzheimer's now, but he's still working. I think he just did a master class, one of those master class things that that you have to buy. So I guess he's not so far gone. I mean, that's the thing. It's a progressive disease.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean as soon as you get a diagnosis that's it.
That's it. All right, I'm gonna lay down.
All right. But I don't see any advantage in knowing until you actually do start to show signs, right? Because otherwise you're just worrying about something and you can't do anything about.
Control, and you're not spreading it to people. So
right, there's no risk involved. Well, if he starts showing up, you know, without his pants, walking along the highway at 2 o'clock in the morning, you say, okay, Chris, you know, it's time to face facts. But for now, you know, it's also kind of hard to imagine somebody who has such a robust physique. You know, he's a young man and he's in ridiculously good shape. It's kind of hard to imagine that he's ever going to be in a position where, you know, he won't be able to find his way home at night.
It seems like an odd show too. Like, hey, we want to test you to see if maybe you have Parkinson's and put it on TV. It's like, oh, it's weird.
They're really struggling to find stuff to put on the National Geographic Channel. Yeah. Well,
they can't. They ran out of Bigfoot shows.
I guess so.
Put on there, so they're gonna new game show. Do you have Parkinson's? I guess.
Well, he comes from a family where apparently there's a strong hereditary you know, a genetic trend.
Yeah, runs. Yeah.
So he probably already
not Parkinson's, Alzheimer's. Yeah.
So he already knew that he was heading in that direction, right? That would be something he might have to confront at some point in his life. Makes me glad. With my father being a heavy smoker and my mother being a heavy drinker, everybody died at an early age, right? So Alzheimer's was never, we don't want to worry, we're not going to linger that long to worry about
Yeah.
Alzheimer's. We'll kill ourselves right now. But I thought that was kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, that is weird. I know they have the other show where they do like the 23andMe for celebrities and they track their history and all, their ancestors, but why would you want to do a show to find out you had some disease like that? It's weird.
Yeah, that I don't know. Maybe it's I didn't see the show. Maybe it's something that came up incidentally along the
Yeah.
way. But again, my own feeling is if it's a curable disease or treatable,
Yeah,
then of
sure.
course
Yeah.
you want to know so you can do something about it. But why would you want to know about something that's not going to affect you for possibly decades in the future, and it's not
Yeah.
something you can do anything about anyway, right? So I don't know. Strange world we live in.
I'm sure he made a pretty penny making that show though.
Well, I'm sure they paid him something.
Yeah. Sure they didn't do it for free.
Nobody seems to do anything for free nowadays.
No.
But anyway, so everything else is good. You got your Thanksgiving plans?
Everything, yep. Just gonna stay here and just eat a bunch of food and that'll be about it.
Well, that sounds like a perfectly
And then go back to
acceptable
work the
tradition.
next day. Yeah.
Oh, and it's Black Friday sales at
Yeah, but
Walmart?
it'll be over before I get there. I won't go until 2, so
Oh, okay, that's good.
I'll be there for the aftermath.
Cleaning up the bodies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's good. How'd you manage to swing that? You're like the elite there.
Well, no, that's my 2 to 11 is my schedule all the time. I
Oh.
work 2 to 11 every day that I'm there. So
And I used to work years ago for the theater chain and then later for Barnes and Noble. I have to admit that's the one thing that I always dreaded was going in,
yeah.
for holiday stuff.
Well, they used to do like Walmart used to do their Black Friday on Thanksgiving. So I would be there for that.
No,
But then after whenever the virus hit, they started doing, okay, we're not going to have everybody crammed into the store at one time.
right.
We're going to break it up and have 3 different sales, and then we'll just close on Thanksgiving. So,
Oh, well, I guess it benefits people for that
yeah.
reason, right? And um, it's a strange thing that the day after Thanksgiving, which is when we all sort of, display
Give
our
thanks and
give
reflect
thanks,
on,
reflect, right? And then the next day everybody goes crazy and becomes
Crazy
a
for a TV.
zombie,
Yeah.
at a mall. I'm
I'm still surprised that the Black Friday thing's even still a thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I've seen the videos of people like just losing their mind and stomping on people and
Yeah,
walking, and it's like, just do it online. We're at the
that's what
point
I
now where
mean.
you can just do everything online. We don't need to have this madness of just people stepping on top of people for TVs.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
and
It doesn't need to be a tradition. You do, you know what I'm saying?
yeah. Well, people don't seem to have any. I mean, I guess from some of the photos that we see on websites of people shopping at Walmart, dignity is not really a top priority.
No.
But I just, for all the different chain stores and for all the stores generally around the holidays, the way people behave, I wonder, don't they have any sense of shame or
Yeah, no.
not concerned about appearing foolish? I mean, obviously, as this episode will show, I'm not terribly concerned about
Yeah.
frequently appear foolish, but the sort of foolishness that people engage in, that sort of fighting over toys and things like that for their
Yeah.
children, and that's just absurd, undignified, and why would anybody want that to be when you go to bed at night after Black Friday, when you know that your picture is going to be online fighting with somebody over a doll or something?
Yeah.
How do you feel? How do you go to sleep? How do you go and face your friends the next day or your coworkers the next day? That is extraordinary to me.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I don't know if we've had any deaths on Black Friday yet.
I'm sure we have. I'm sure. I mean, because at some point I noticed some of the stores were saying, because they used to just lock the door, and then everybody's crammed up against the door. Then they would just,
Right.
6 o'clock, they open the door and just let everybody run in. I noticed some of the stores now do hey, you got to get in line. We're going to have
That seems a
a
better
line
way.
before we open this door,
Yeah.
so. But yeah, so I'm pretty sure people were stomped to death prior to that, prior to them doing the cues and all that. So
Well, I saw a little bit of a movie. I forget the name of it. It was a Paul Newman movie from the 60s. And it was about the advertising business, and it involved the first scene in the movie is a department store, the manager of the department store going and opening the department store and being crushed by
yeah,
the people rushing in. And I always thought, why don't they just put up some stanchions in front of the door so everybody has to stand back? I think that a lot of these stores actually encourage that. They think that
oh
looks
yeah, they
good.
do. Yeah,
People are practically killing each other to get into our stores. It's good publicity.
oh yeah,
But it makes a guy like me say, never would go to a store. I don't like going to those stores under the
on the
best of
regular days. Yeah,
so the idea of going and being part of an insane mob of flabby white people, I don't know why I would want to do that. But
makes January 6th look like an actual just
you
tourist visit.
wonder, a lot of the folks that showed up on January 6th maybe got their training
At Walmart, yeah, Black Friday.
or all the whatever store they like to attack. What are the different chains now that are probably Target?
Target, I guess Best Buy would still
Best
have
Buy still,
probably some Black Fridays. GameStop.
yeah. So, well, anyway, it's good that we all are sticking with our worship of material things.
Yeah, it's always good.
Stuff.
After
We need
Thanksgiving.
more stuff.
Yeah.
Not that I can, obviously I have plenty of stuff too.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the whole room, which is probably
Right,
just as
yeah.
well. But why people would make fools of themselves just to get more stuff, that I don't understand.
Yeah, the weird thing is too, like with the TVs are actually cheaper during the Super Bowl because it's the end of most stores' fiscal year. They're trying to get rid of all this old stock, and it's the Super Bowl. They're going to sell them cheaper. You can get your TV cheaper at Super Bowl.
Well, now you
Then you can't.
revealed
Yeah.
this secret, are you authorized to reveal these secrets?
Yeah, I'm sure I am. Yeah.
Well, I don't like to go to stores to buy electronics. I usually like to try to do that online,
Yeah.
because every time I go to a store to buy electronics, I always find that they're trying to sell me the thing that they want to sell me rather than the thing I want to buy.
That you want. Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, we don't have that, but we have this.
This one.
And of course, they always are harassing you to buy their fucking extended warranties,
Extended warranty. Yeah.
which is a form of torture that should be outlawed by the Geneva Convention, I think.
Yeah, well, those kills are like, do you want to buy? If what I'm buying doesn't last 2 years, then it's not worth me paying for your extended warranty, anyways.
Right. Well, the extended warranties,
I don't expect this thing to last 2 years. So
right, and they're not expensive. They're not cheap, but the extended
No.
warranties can add quite a bit to the cost.
yeah,
So you're buying something for maybe less than $200, and you can add a considerable amount on top of that. What's the point, right?
yeah,
Especially for products that as we've already acknowledged, are going to be obsolete in 2 years, maybe at tops.
right, yeah.
So it does seem like just a tremendous money-making thing for the stores.
Like the undercoating on cars.
Right, yes, yeah. There's a lot of instances where they've found ways to keep you paying way beyond what the actual value of the product is, right?
Yep, just like Photoshop.
So exactly right.
Adobe trying to get money out of you.
So we don't want people just to pay once. We want them to be always be
Always
paying.
paying for it. Yeah.
Yes. So that's the world we live in now.
Yep.
Anyway, well, I wish you a good Thanksgiving. Happy
You too.
Thanksgiving to you and your
Yep.
family. You're going to be spending your Thanksgiving in your new home?
But not yet. We're not moved
No?
in yet.
Okay, so
Nope.
by
Still got some
Christmas,
painting to do and still got some other stuff to do. So
by Christmas time, maybe?
I'm hoping, yes.
Mm. Well,
Hopefully the next episode will be filmed in the new office.
so you'll be in a new environment. I'm in a new
Yeah.
environment. It's a whole new phase. And I see you changing the name. This is a great breakthrough. You decided, perhaps because of planes, trains, and automobiles, that it's no
Well,
longer going to be.
more, I guess, actually goes back to Superman. I knew once we done Superman, I was like, okay, that's it. We're no longer just a horror movie podcast. We're going to do other films. So, and a podcast from beneath doesn't really say horror, but I figure.
No, but
And I don't, and like I said, I don't feel like making new YouTube channels and new Facebook pages.
oh
so-
no, yeah, you want. Well, I think it's perfectly fine. I mean, all the magazines that I've liked in the past, like Cine Fantastique and Video Watchdog, they cast a pretty wide net. They didn't
Yeah.
just limit themselves to horror. And ostensibly, they were horror oriented, or
Right.
fantasy, horror, science fiction oriented, but they did anything that appealed to them, anything they were interested in, which is the way it should be, right?
Oh yeah.
And you can change your title from you've just changed it to initials for now, but
Yeah, I figure I'll just go with that for now. That'll be good.
I can think of a podcast from beyond might be
There you go. Yeah.
because you're
That'll
going
make it
beyond what you
Yeah.
did in the
Mhm.
past. So
That'll be an easy switch there.
yeah.
Both
Well, we
start
always
with a
try to
B.
make it easy
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, going forward, we'll do other other genres, other movies. We won't stick with just I don't see us doing too many buddy comedy, like not buddy comedies, but
Well, good ones are so rare.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's not, and as we discussed with the Young Frankenstein, sometimes comedies are difficult to really dig into too much.
yeah.
There's really not much to say about them other than whether or not they're funny. Right?
Yeah. It made me laugh and I liked
right.
it, and that's it. Yeah.
There's no deep philosophy behind them. As a matter of fact, something like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles would be damaged by any attempt to put any sort of extra message into
Meaning
it. Right?
into it, yeah.
So it makes it hard to know what to say about them other than people should watch them.
Well, yeah. Just
So-
recommendations, yeah.
But there are
For a
plenty
short
of
episode.
right. There are plenty of other movies that maybe don't fit neatly into the horror category that are worth discussing. So
Oh yeah.
it's good to open things up, I think.
I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to doing some other movies. So
Yes. All right. Well, the new year is not too far off, so we have a lot to look forward to.
oh yeah. Lots of other good movies coming out that we can do. And older
Absolutely.
movies also.
Yes, indeed. All right, sir. Well, I guess that's it for tonight.
And like I said, we'll hopefully come back. I don't know what my schedule's like so far, but I would at least like to do, if I only do one movie in December, it's gonna be Black Christmas. So
Yeah, that would be kind of fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be appropriate. We sort of missed that the past couple of Christmases, but
Yep.
this time around we'll get it for sure.
Yep. But I should have at least a couple of days off we can do. Hopefully do, like I said, Black Christmas, maybe something else. I'll have to wait and see.
All righty. All righty. Great. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
Oh, you too.
And I'll be speaking to you.
Yep.
Take care.